another episode of the Untied Podcast. Today we are talking to Wajid Hassan. He is from Pakistan, moved to England, and then finally settled in America. He has lived an interesting variety of a life that from anywhere from a field service engineer to a stand-up comedian, an actor, voiceover artist, narration, commercials. You name it, he's done it. Without further ado, please welcome Wajid to the podcast.
Hey
Wajid,
guys, Jackson,
hey,
Michael,
how are you doing?
great to see you guys.
Yeah, great to see you too. So tell us a little bit about how someone goes from being a field service engineer to a comedian.
Yeah, that was strange. Primarily, I got my formal education in England, where I worked for a large corporation there as a field service engineer, repairing computer systems around southern England, and then I had an opportunity to move to United States, and that was a good move. I moved to Los Angeles because I was losing my tan. I was turning white in England, and so I had to move to sunny California. So I worked there for a TRW at their computer maintenance division in Santa Fe Springs. And around 1997, I ended up actually working on my own. I had a little computer repair shop in Hollywood, and it was near Sunset and Highland, and it was opposite this casting studios on the other side. And so this lady, well, actually, prior to that, I was following my own yogi master, an Englishman by the name of Dr. George King, and he was kind of like my mentor, my father, and he passed away in 1997. And I kind of got into a really deep depression, and I couldn't get out of it. So my wife at the time, she said, "Well, when you were in high school in London, you got in front of people and you made people laugh, and so why don't you do some open mics?" So that's what I did. I took some classes. I did some open mics over at the Laugh Factory and the Comedy Store and the Improv, and I was pretty happy just doing that. It wasn't something that I decided to make a career of. And then one time, this lady came into the store, and I fixed her Apple computer, and she kept staring at me. And finally, I said, "Well, why do you keep staring at me?" She said, "Well," said, "you have an interesting face." I said, "So?" She said, "Well, I'm a casting director." I said, "So?" I didn't know what a casting director was. And she said, "Well, let's see if we can get you a commercial agent." And so I guess I was kind of discovered in Hollywood by chance. And then I started auditioning and found out I was good as a character actor, because in Hollywood they love to characterize you, especially if you're from a different country. Like for me, being born in East Asia, of course, it's the cab driver or the 7-Eleven guy, or the doctor or the guru. So I managed to do well in commercials, and then I got a theatrical agent, and I did that for like 20 years as a working. Amazing how destinies can change.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I feel like, I've seen a bunch of people go from, take that leap and go from one place to the other. But field service engineer, I felt like was a big leap. You go from working with technology to working with people. So,
Yeah, I
or
kind of
even
got
like
burnt.
working TV.
I kind of got burnt out in the technical field. There's just comes a time where everybody wanted it yesterday, and it's really interesting. Last year in the pandemic, and now recently, a lot of people are quitting their jobs. They're like, you know what, I've had enough. I'm not doing this. I want to do what I want to do. And so, yeah, I mean, I had to take menial jobs, work as a taxi cab driver, limo driver, security guard, valet. I mean, I did all that stuff so that I could audition during the day. But, I was following my passion. And, the entertainment industry is so competitive. So it's a really tough business. But I'm glad I managed to get some steady work over the years. So.
Wajid, what was the biggest like surprise of just working in the entertainment industry, or something that you just didn't expect to be a part of it?
The biggest surprise, the fact that I got booked. 'Cause you know, because you know how difficult it is to get booked, and the fact, it's 99.9% rejection, and I managed to book some gigs. So that was, my first ever commercial. 1999 was for Nike, and
Wow.
of course, they put me as a cab driver with a turban and an Indian accent. I said, look, if you're going to pay me, I'll do it.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of roles out there for definitely people that aren't uh white, that I feel like, I mean, at least I feel like maybe bending that nationality or that is easier for you. That, like, it would be worse if they put me as that role, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was at the Laugh Factory once with the owner Jamie Masada, and after my open mic, he critiques the open micers, and I'm sitting with him, and then who walks in? Chris Rock, and there I am with a turban on my head, talking to Jamie Masada. So Chris Rock comes up to me, he shakes my hand, he goes, "Oh, I see you want to be like me." I thought that was hilarious. Want to be a comedian with a turban on my head, but. I think you're right, Jackson. I mean, if you have a niche, and even though I was raised in England, but if you have a niche and if that's what they want, you know, first I kind of despised it a little bit, and then I realized, you know what, I'm getting work, and it's not going to change. And although the roles are changing now for them for minorities, they're getting more better roles, but if that's what they want, heck, I'll do it. And I was happy I got the work.
Right. Well, and that's one view on it. I feel like there's also the fact that, you're being misrepresented. And I feel like that's another, whole nother path to look at it, that way. So it's definitely understandable if you weren't, happy go lucky about those roles.
Yeah, I
But
remember Aziz Ansari did a couple of episodes on, I think, on Netflix. And one scene, he was, he had a scenario where he was auditioning, and they asked him, "Well, can you do a Indian accent?" So I got to meet Aziz Ansari as well. So yeah, it is what it is. It's the status quo. But I think
yeah,
the younger generation are not probably not as accepting. But
right.
but roles are opening up for minorities in many ways, but there's still a lot of improvement.
So how did you go from doing all of those things to ending up, with over 40 years of experience in the field of metaphysics?
Yeah, that's when I was in England. I lived in the north of England, and being from Pakistan, I was raised in the traditional Orthodox Muslim family where I went to the mosque and read the Quran and did the Arabic prayers. But also in England, I attended Church of England schools where the curriculum in those days was Bible studies, uh, hymns, carols, and so I kind of got both an education both in Islam and Christianity, and to me it didn't really bother me. To me they were just two aspects of you know a path to divinity, and so I'm very open-minded to all religions and all beliefs. But at the age of 16, I met my own yogi master, an Englishman by the name of Dr. George King, and I've been following him ever since. And so I followed a lot of his teachings, which got into metaphysical aspects, spiritual healing, yoga, UFOs, and I I kind of kept it in the background. I kind of promoted his organization, but at the same time, you got to eat. So it wasn't something I did full time as a profession. But recently, I moved to North Carolina, and I kind of eased up on the auditions and job wise. And now After publishing the book last year called The Struggle for World Sanity, I decided to kind of get, get more into, again, a passion that I kind of kept to myself. And I decided, well, I think it's about time that people learn uh, aspects of truth which usually the mainstream media doesn't talk about.
Right.
So with speaking about like aspects of truth and you wanting people to learn about it, what are, like, I almost want you to teach us or give us a hint of things that you believe people should know and or understand or open their mind to.
Well, I think part of writing the book, I was inspired to write the book, is that, on top of the pandemic, we're living in a world that's full of uncertainty. We have endless wars going on. We have an economic system that favors the rich, uh, and a lot of people are kind of working in slave labor right now, in jobs that they can't get out of. We've got hatred between races. We've got hatred between religions. We got pollution, and so based on what's happening, we're kind of regressing into a place that we kind of dig in a hole ourselves, and so the inspiration behind uh, writing the book is to let people know that despite what's happening around the world, there are going to be major changes occurring in the future, and that um, the future is actually going to be a lot better than what people are predicting. I mean, some people talk about end of times and the end of the world, but there is a change in consciousness that's occurring. Um, people are aware that there's two aspects behind that. The first one, astrologically, is we've come out of the Piscean age. We're now in the age of Aquarius. So astrologically, that's that's pushing mankind, because we're all affected by the planets and our environment. It's pushing mankind to be more unified, to start thinking more of each other, looking more on a global scale instead of looking at ourselves as one particular race or one particular country. But there's this push now that the people unite, and the realization that we are indeed one one race, just coming here with different experiences. So that's what one aspect of truth that I wanted to throw out. And the second one, right now in Glasgow, Scotland, they have the COP26 UN conference where people, leaders from all over the world are coming together to talk about climate change. And another aspect, again, that the mainstream media or most people are not aware of, except maybe a lot of the indigenous tribes or people who study metaphysics and are very open-minded, is that the planet herself is a living, breathing entity, you know, and she she herself is also going through this cosmic change, raising her vibrations, and so climate change is nothing. Carbon emissions are just a small aspect of climate change. The ionosphere is slowly coming down. The temperature is rising. The ice caps are melting, and these have got nothing to do with climate change. This is also another aspect which the UN and the whole world need to understand, that we are living on a living, breathing, cosmic goddess called Mother Earth, who we've really raped and pillaged over the centuries, and what we need to do now is to give back, and there's aspects of climate change that we can, by giving back, which could actually balance a lot of these terrible weather conditions that are occurring around the planet right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was yeah. Um. Well, and when you were saying that, I was thinking of the there's a movie, The Happening, with uh it's, I want to say it's Mark Wahlberg, but it's basically like a horror thriller almost, and they have that's where the planet is almost getting payback for all of the shit that we put it through over the years. So now it's like instead of the trees emitting oxygen, it's they're emitting carbon monoxide. They're emitting this almost toxic gas that is making people kill themselves and they don't know why. Like, and it's just one thing after another with that in that movie. And I remember like watching this as a kid. I was like, oh my god, I hope this never happens. But I mean, closer we get to like all of the things like the crazy fires in California that just start because they're like, oh, it's too dry because, you know, X, Y, and Z. I mean, things like that, you know. And then with you saying what you just said, I'm not going to repeat it because I would butcher it, but I think it is definitely important to think about the fact of what we do to this earth and how we treat it, as opposed to the fact that it's not just here to serve us.
Yeah, and again, people. My yogi master, he studied yoga for over 10 years. Not just physical hatha yoga, but deep meditation, yoga breathing, till he got to the point where he achieved high states of consciousness, and he was contacted by beings not from this world, from higher dimensions, who I believe are not only technically more advanced but also spiritually advanced. And he managed, based on his own meditations, a yogi master like from India, if he reaches a certain state of elevation, he can do amazing things like walk through walls, levitate, tremendous healing powers. And one thing a yogi master can do, he can look at the aura around you, and he can see your past, present, and future just based on looking at your aura. And it's the same with the planet; she has an aura as well. And in deep meditation, he managed to read her aura, which some people in the East refer to as the Akashic records. And from there, he saw a complete three-dimensional or four-dimensional color sequence of the actual history of mankind. And so we go back 18 million years, and so current religions only go back like 4 or 5 thousand years. And so he saw aspects of our past, where we were actually, there was two civilizations that we were part of. The first one was called Lemuria, and the second one was called Atlantis. And in deep meditation, he said that both these civilizations were extremely advanced, and both of them were destroyed by atomic warfare. And and so what he said is that in the 50s and 60s we started exploding the atomic and hydrogen bombs again, and there was a tremendous concern that we were about to destroy the planet ourselves. And so there was intervention on our behalf. Even scientists today can't understand why we're not all dead, because there was so much radioactive emission. The United States exploded over 1,000 hydrogen atom bombs, and so did Russia. And really, we should be in a nuclear holocaust right now. But the fact that we're breathing in itself is a miracle. So these are aspects of truth, again, that the mainstream media has not talked about, because the mainstream media doesn't even know about it. And so he wrote a book in the early 60s called The Nine Freedoms. And in there, I think you can get it from Amazon. And in there, he totally talked about the true history of the human race, and where we stand in regards to evolution, and where we're going. And so it's come to that critical point where either we conform and raise our vibrations with the planet, or really we won't be allowed to stay on this planet. And so it's reached that point where either we change and become the advanced beings that we were at one time, or we won't be able to even stay on this planet in the future. So these are things that that just shook me to the core when I heard about them. And people, when I tell them about them, it shakes them because they've never even heard about it. But sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.
Oh my! Can you take us through what a yogi master is and what I guess their I don't want to say what their job is, but almost
Like what
like
their goal, like
yeah,
what
like
their main.
what their duty is and what they try to provide, and yeah, I guess like their main goal at the end of the day.
Well, Dr. King said, he said there's only one reason for us being on this planet. He said that there isn't two. And we didn't come here to suffer. That's something that we created ourselves by our own inactions. Our own wars, our own pillaging, our own raping of the planet, the pollution. These are something that we've caused. We can't blame anything higher. This is our own dirty laundry coming back. And what he said there's only one reason we're here on this planet. And he said this is a beautiful classroom where we're supposed to come, incarnate, and raise our vibrations to the point where we can achieve high states of meditation, high states of bliss. Some people call it cosmic consciousness or nirvana, and even further than that, reaching states of ascension where we learn that we can, with all these experiences that we have on the planet. Of course, I'm also a firm believer of reincarnation. I think if that truth needs to be also openly declared to the masses, because again, it's been hidden. I don't know if you guys know, but some Christian scholars recently, there was an article in the Daily Express in London, where they're coming forward and said that reincarnation was actually taught in the Christian church, and it was deliberately taken out 700 years ago, in order to create this one life, and you're doomed to hell and eternity if you don't listen to us. So these kind of truths need to be understood. Like, if people understood that, we come in as different races, different creeds, different religions, even different sexes, on and off the planet for centuries till we learn all that we need to learn. Um, and so our heritage is actually to raise and become kind of cosmic gods in a way that we're supposed to. That's why we're attracted to these, like Marvel and science fiction, where these superheroes. That's an aspect of mankind that we were at one time, and we've kind of regressed. So a yogi master, just like a martial artist, trains for years to control their mind and body to the point where they become masters of the martial art. Yogi master is the same, where he has complete control of his psychic centers. He can raise the power within him, called the power of Kundalini, and raise these to higher psychic centers to the point where he can be of great service, send out tremendous healing power, and help raise the consciousness of the whole planet. So that's really the essence of a yogi master, is one who has accomplished everything, and has the wisdom and knowledge that he can impart uh, to people who are still trying to raise their vibrations.
So actually, I studied martial arts for like a little over 8 years, and I got my third degree black belt. And as I was training for my third degree, well, as I was training for my second degree, we started um, practicing and studying meditation, as well as like Reiki, so like the transference of energy.
Yes,
And that so like everything that you're saying is like, I'm like, whoa, I like knew about that stuff, but it was kind of stuff that was in the back of my mind. I haven't used it in years, I but it was, kind of crazy to see that, it's not just, it wasn't just the taekwondo side of things that I was training in and studying in. It's more of like just an Eastern culture that it like derives from the, transference of energy. It's the same thing that, they would tell us stories of you know grandmasters and masters before them that could, move things with their mind and levitate, and all of these
exactly.
things that you're saying. I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah, I mean, when you study martial arts, the physical aspect is the least important aspect, because you get to the point. Dr. King years ago met this. a judo master from Japan, and this guy was so trained physically and mentally that he could actually, with his mind, he could kill somebody from 15 yards away just with his mind, but he would dare not use it at all because they reach that point where they use their powers to uplift and heal. And so that's the essence of martial arts, is to get to the point where you become so powerful that you dare not use it. And as a martial artist, I think most martial artists would run away in a combat scenario because they're so powerful. They know they could easily kill their opponent, so they would rather not kill the opponent. They would rather walk away from a fight than because they know their own powers. And yeah, that's a really valid point you made there, Jackson.
Yeah.
Well, Wajid, I'm gonna ask you kind of a basic question, but I think you're going to give a very in-depth answer that people will like and respond to. But why is meditation so important? Because if you ask, I don't know, like I guess a basic yoga instructor, sorry, any basic yoga instructors that are listening, but they'll just say it's really good for your body and your mind. But can you give us like an in-depth answer as what meditation can actually do for us?
Well, the thing is, people are now beginning to realize that we're actually phys- spiritual beings in physical bodies. You know, we inhabit a physical body for a certain while and then we leave it. And the spiritual aspects of us is the aura, the psychic centers, the soul that we inhabit in our physical body, and then we take that with us when we die, and we go to other realms, and then we reincarnate back. So, you know, they talk about a famine on this planet, you know, in regards to food. Um, Meditation is food for the soul, and we have to replenish the energies within our soul um, by prayer, sending out energy, and receiving energy, and it's a natural aspect of man, which again, you know, doing a few yoga exercises and whatever is very nice, but I think it's very important these days to connect with the power within. Some people call it a higher power, some people call it a spark of the divine. You can call it whatever you want, but it's very important in these days of chaos and turmoil to go within, go to nature, attune yourself with nature, attune yourself with the Mother Earth, attune yourself with the universe, and start realizing that we're not separated, but we're all part of one. And so, meditation is just like what uh, breakfast, lunch, and dinner we need for our physical body. It's the same aspect. We need that spiritual connection with our higher self in order to kind of stay serene in these days of madness.
Do you meditate? I'm guessing you do. Do you meditate every day, and do you have like a room in your house, or do you try and go outside and find somewhere and connect with nature that way?
I do both. It's very important. I go for walks, and physical exercise is very important. But I have a little altar at home, and in the morning I do my yoga breathing exercises, and do my prayers and meditation. And I think it's just like brushing your teeth and taking a shower. I think it's an essential aspect of our spiritual well-being.
So you mentioned also UFOs in this, and I actually that was when you messaged me, and we were introduced. Like you had brought up UFOs and like spirituality and life after death, past, present, and future. And I saw that and was like, yes, of course. And I actually wore my Area 51 T-shirt today to talk about UFOs. But they're so when you talk about UFOs in contact with a higher being within yourself, but the yogi master that you had, was he was contacted, you said, by like people like a higher being that wasn't from this planet. Could you go a little bit more into that?
Yeah, it was very interesting that when he actually reached a high state of elevated consciousness, he was then contacted by these beings that we refer to as people who man these spacecraft, UFOs. And like I mentioned in the 50s and 60s, it's very interesting that there was a tremendous amount of flying saucer activity around the planet when we started exploding our nuclear bombs. So, I believe that uh, I call them cosmic masters because they're very highly elevated beings. I mean, if you look at this world, I mean, most people don't even know where we go when we die. And if you study some Buddhist or Hindu philosophy, most people will realize that when we die, we go to different levels of existence. And Dr. King, as a yogi master, was able to project from his body consciously and go to these levels. And he said there's 6 levels above us and 4 levels below us. And so we go to these realms, and then we stay there for a while, learn different lessons, and then reincarnate back. And so it's the same with other planets in this solar system and beyond. And he wrote a book called You Are Responsible, and he talked about projecting from his body to Mars and Venus, and communicating with higher beings on these planets. Now, if you, I agree with science that if you went to Mars or Venus or Saturn or Jupiter in a physical body, more than likely the likelihood of life would be kind of minimum, because based on the atmosphere, on just on the physical realm, I don't think the possibility of life is there. But we don't even know about the higher levels on this earth. And so Dr. King was able to project to the higher levels on Mars, like level 5, on different dimensions of where these higher beings reside. And so he said people could go to Mars for 100 years and live on Mars and not be even aware, like we are not aware of these higher dimensions here, of the higher dimensions on these other planets. And so quantum physics is you know recently they're coming to this conclusion that there are, based on their calculations, that there are parallel universes, different dimensions where people can exist. And it's very interesting when people see UFOs, they suddenly blink into being and then blink out of being. So they have the ability to lower their vibrations and come onto the physical level, and then go back onto the higher levels. And so people now, in the past, in the 50s and 60s, Dr. King was laughed at when he mentioned life on other planets. But now, because of technology, because of space exploration, more and more people are more open-minded to this aspect, that indeed there is higher forms of life. And to me, I think they're very compassionate. They've been watching us for millions of years, and I believe they're here to help us. And so um, some of these truths about our past and what's happening to the Mother Earth and our future, those were communications that were sent through telepathically through Dr. King from these higher beings.
Well, and I think it is good to note that when you say that it was in the 50s and 60s was when we saw historically the biggest influx of people spotting UFOs and things like that, and it does have a correlation with uh, the fact that that was around the time of Roswell, and that was also when they were studying nuclear warfare and testing nuclear warfare on the planet. So that I never thought to draw the parallel between those two.
Put it together.
Yeah, to be like, oh, that was connected. I thought they were just two things that were coincidences. And like since then, I mean, you don't hear about the testing of nuclear warfare as much anymore. Not that it's non-existent, but it's just not as much as in the 50s, where they're making kids, they're showing the kids the like video of the turtle going under the desk and all that. it's a completely different environment around nuclear energy and nuclear power, where they're almost using it to try and supplement energy sources now. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're probably, don't believe this half the things this government says, any of them, but they, probably are using it for destruction as well. But
Well,
and
after the horrors of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, where they just used basic atomic bombs, I think the world woke up to that realization that we have the ability to just completely annihilate ourselves, and that's where the madness is. And so now it's to the point as like, are you lemmings? They said the lemmings kind of go mass over the hill, over the cliff, and kill themselves. Are we into this, fourth path of destruction of the human race, or can we save ourselves? And it's time that we actually saved ourselves from this nuclear madness and the madness that we've created for ourselves.
Wajid, do you think there's any relation to like psychedelics and to be more specific, like psychedelic mushrooms that can help like find identity, or just like being like finding the mind over matter, or like have you, I don't want to ask like if you've ever experienced with them, but do you think there's something with psychedelics that can help someone find, I guess, their inner self?
Psychedelics work, but the trouble is they rush it, and so they suddenly open up the psychic centers, the higher psychic centers, and they don't close properly, and so then people get psychosomatic conditions, they get into addiction, they want to get that high, um, and so if you're gonna go into high states of meditation, it's better to stay away from drugs and do it the natural way that we're supposed to do it. It's a longer way, but but drugs and psychedelics do it, but they do it very quickly. But the side effects are not good, and so yeah, you do get those tremendous highs, and you can achieve very high states of spiritual consciousness, but it's very uncontrolled. So with yoga, yoga means union with God, and uh, just like Jackson with the martial arts, it's a gradual discipline to the point where you can have control over mind and matter, where you consciously have control. That's more safe. The other path can lead to madness and all kinds of stuff, and so it's probably better not to do it that way.
all right, well noted. And so I was actually listening to an interview today with Dr. Bob Lazar, who's a physicist that was hired by Area S4, which is about 15 miles south of Area 51. And he was talking about this technology from like higher beings, or a UFO or something like that. But he was hired to reverse engineer it, and what he did was when he was explaining it, he was saying that there were no wires or anything connecting the parts, or the like anything on this, like almost like an engine, but it was all like kind of like a magnetic field, where as long as it was within its direct contact, it was able to work. It was able to, as long as they were readily available to like touch, almost, that they were able to work together, and it was a reactor, it was able to turn on. um do you think that almost sounds like the energy transference that we can reach when we reach a certain level of consciousness, but that sounds like they almost replicated it into technology.
Yeah, it's so advanced. In the 50s, Dr. King was on the BBC, um, and he was interviewed about flying saucers, and he said that the space people use a particular organic metal which is not from this world, which is susceptible to thought. And so they build their craft based on telepathic commands, where they don't have to use any instrumentation or move. And he really shocked him. He said, well, if they really push, they can on the spacecraft they can get from Venus uh, to Earth in about 2.5 seconds using this organic metal that's susceptible to thought. And thought itself, um, through the human body, I think it's been measured at 600 miles per hour, but in free space it can achieve velocities of over 4 million times the speed of light. Now, talking about thoughts and technology, Dr. King actually had a projected experience he mentioned in the Nine Freedoms, where he actually projected to a giant spacecraft that comes into orbit of Earth um, periodically. It's going to be in orbit again November the 4th to December the 5th. And this giant spacecraft is about a mile and a half long. It's an egg-shaped craft, which he referred to as called satellite number 3. Now, if you look at basic Earth technology, today with a global positioning or GPS, we can pinpoint anybody on the planet now with a cell phone. That's basic Earth technology. And he saw instrumentations on this spacecraft where he was later told that because the space people, and he actually, some of the beings he met, he said they were 7 feet tall, humanoid, very handsome features, and the women were very beautiful. So, um, I kind of questioned the little green men aspect where I think that that could be androids that they probably use. But he said the technology that he saw, they mentioned to him that they have, based on their cosmic technology, they can pinpoint every single man, woman, child, plant, fish, rock. They have a complete um, vibrational sequence based on their radionic computer systems of every live stream on this planet. So they can actually beam down spiritual energies, which they do on a regular basis. And all we have to do is just telepathically. I think Dr. Stephen Greer kind of threw out that aspect of it, but he was trying to contact these ETs, and he has this meditation tape app where you buy and you can try to contact. But there's no need to contact because they have a complete dossier on us. And when this spacecraft comes into orbit, we can they, we can just telepathically or just think of attracting this spiritual energy and sending it out, regardless of race, color, creed, or religion. And that's the call of the day. It's to be of service. It's to help our fellow man. And there is an energy crisis on this planet, and it's a spiritual energy crisis. And if we fix this, we can fix most conditions on this earth. So it's something that again I'm throwing out at your listeners, uh, because I actually belong to a group where we get together regularly and send out healing power, and telepathically send out this energy out. So if people want to know more about it, they can go to this website called 12blessings.org, the 12 being numerical, and just do it for themselves, because this energy, just like electricity, is tangible. You can come in front of a mirror, you can visualize white light, and you can feel this energy coming back at you and tingling around your body and on your fingers. So it's just like electricity, except it's a very tangible energy. And so there's three aspects that we need to do to save this planet. First, I give money to charitable organizations. I also volunteer physically. I help drug addicts and alcoholics. And the third aspect, which is the most important aspect that we can do these days, is spiritual beings channel this energy. And you don't have to belong to any religion, any ideology. All you have to have right now is this belief that we are one and we can serve each other by raising the vibrations of the planet.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, So I mean, going back a little bit to what you said about the fact that they were 7 feet tall and looked like humanoid creatures. Um, there, I know have been, ancient findings that were of like drawings inside the pyramids, inside, temple walls near where they buried the pharaoh, all of those things. And you'll see in some of these drawings and paintings that they have UFOs in there, but there are also some where the people that they are worshiping are coming down from the sky in chariots and things like that, where and that is where I always get caught between. I was raised Catholic, converted to Christianity. If like there's a difference, the only difference is you can eat meat on Friday whenever you want. But the basically,
you're not condemned to purgatory.
yeah, yeah. So basically, the thing that I keep looking at is the fact that these messages came down from the sky, and then they were like, "This is God." And some cultures definitely looked at it and went, they never called it God; they called it a higher being. But then there were definitely some cultures that went, "This is God," and I'm like, some of those things might not have been, like some of the things that even were in the Bible might have been misinterpreted as God, but was a higher power of being that was contacting them.
Well, people are questioning even the Star of Bethlehem now, because technology and science, it's impossible for a star to guide three wise men over a stable and hover there. People are questioning that now. Uh, People talked about a star, but I don't think it was a star. And it's really interesting. When the Lord Buddha was born, there was 5 disc-shaped objects seen over the temple. And then when he died, there was 5 disc-shaped objects that appeared in the sky. So you're right, Jackson. You're on the ball. That this UFO phenomena and beings from other planets, other systems, is nothing new. History is ripe with them with these. There was a fascinating document I saw once of the Hopi Indian tribe. They actually have a ritual where they worship a flying saucer and it has portholes and everything. They have this one ritual where they actually worship this spacecraft, and I thought that was very interesting. That these beings contacted the Hopis and the Aborigines and different races throughout our history. So yeah, this phenomenon is not going away. It's been around for 18 million years, and they have that's one aspect which people don't understand is they have a love for us which we don't have for each other. They can see where we were, where we can be, and so that's why they're in the skies right now. They may not openly come. I think they will in the future. I think they will, but right now the best thing that they can do is send these energies to us to help inspire us and raise us. And it's really interesting. There was one communication that Dr. King got, where they said they approached another planet in this galaxy that was going through a similar problem the Earth is going through, and they opened themselves up to these energies, to these inspirations, and they said within 50 years the whole planet completely changed. So we have the tools, the spiritual tools, to change this world. You know, you talked about climate change and the fires and the hurricanes. All these again can be controlled by sending energies to the nature spirits that create these conditions. So a lot of these conditions of tornadoes, hurricanes, we actually create ourselves by sending out negative energy to these invisible nature spirits that control the weather. And again, there's examples with American Indians. They can do metaphysical dance, sending out energy to the nature spirits, and they do. Some people call it like a rain dance. Next thing you know, it starts raining. So these again are natural energies which we've forgotten how to use, and we just need to rekindle our spiritual heritage, not our religious heritage, because religion has caused so much destruction on this planet, but our spiritual heritage.
Right. I feel like at some point religion starts to separate us as a whole, whereas the spiritual connectivity and like spiritual and conscious, like the level of consciousness that you could reach that is out there, um, that would be able to make us more of a, like a one world, like mind, almost, in the sense that like we Michael and I did improv together, and the whole thing is group mind and thinking as a group and not thinking like for yourself or as yourself. So I mean, even like little aspects like that. I'm not saying that taking Second City classes for improv makes us enlightened, but I'm just saying like those little aspects to get us one step closer to getting there.
Yeah, and another thing that your listeners may not be aware of, but we've reached this critical mass now. We've reached a point where the Mother Earth is raising her vibrations, and we came on this planet 18 million years ago. We were reincarnated, and it's reached that point where either we conform and raise our vibrations and become the spiritual gods that we were at one time, or we won't be allowed to stay on this planet. We won't be able to handle the high vibrations, and we will be, and mankind, the people who don't, the polluters and the warmongers, and all the other people will not be allowed to stay on this planet. They will probably reincarnate on a different planet to gain further experience, and only those who raise their vibrations will be able to stay on this planet, because in the years to come, it's going to be a completely different world. There won't be any wars. There won't be any economic system. There won't be any different races or religions. It's all going to be one. In the next, 5, 6, 700 years, the whole thing is going to completely change. And this was predicted not only recently by my yogi master, but for centuries, prophets of old have talked about this new age, this new heaven on earth that's going to occur on planet Earth, and it's occurred, and we just either we conform to it, or we won't be able to stay on this planet.
Right. This is like just a mind melting interview.
Yes.
Definitely different than the majority of our interviews, but I think this has been a very educational experience and
Yeah.
eye opening for us to see what is possible and what is out there other than what we're used to.
Yeah. This has been amazing.
Yeah. And actually, so you said you work with, and I know we're running a little bit over, I won't want to keep you too long, but you said you work with alcoholics and drug addicts, and we're actually doing Sober November. And we, we're not drinking for the entire month until Thanksgiving, because you can't, I can't be around my family without having a couple drinks. But so we're basically doing that, and we also we do enjoy using cannabis from time to time. So do you like, what are some tips that you could give someone out there, or specifically us, on being able to make it the full month?
Good luck.
All right.
I know you guys, so good luck.
All right.
We'll need it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So
No, I mean, and anybody can have a drink, but when you get addicted, it's a whole different scenario. So
right. Right. Yeah.
then it causes destruction. Same with drugs. You can get addicted to them, and then it just we know the scenario. We don't have to repeat that.
Yeah. Yeah. So Wajid, I want to thank you so much for coming on here, enlightening us with the knowledge that you have, as well as our viewers. Where can people get your book? It's on Amazon, correct?
Yeah, and one last thought is to your listeners. They may be blown away with this information, but do what I did. Do your own research. I'm not here to convert anybody, and if you can check out my Yogi Masters organization. You can check out the 12 blessings. Actually, it's all on my website, So if people go to wajidauthor.com, WAJIDAUTHOR, wajidauthor.com, all the information is there. And you know, I just say to your listeners, keep an open mind. In the past, people were persecuted when they said that the Earth was flat and that the Earth actually revolves around the sun. They were called heretics. They were threatened with death. And so when truth is told, I think Dr. King was a spiritual pioneer. He was laughed at. He was condemned, and then 400-500 years down the road, he's going to be a hero because people will understand the concepts that he was talking about now. And so again, for your listeners, use your intuition, which in the book I said is the greatest lie detector ever created. Use your own intuition, use your own inspiration, and make up your own mind.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to include that link in the description below. And I assume people can buy the book from your website. So
Yeah, I have a link to Amazon. So
perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, Wajid, thank you again so much for coming on, and we'll keep in touch, and I'll let you know when this episode's released.
Yeah, thank
All
you
right.
again so much.
Thanks, Jackson. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it.
All
Take
right.
care.
Have a good one.
Thanks.